Craven the Hunter, who uses all the methods of the animals.
This Thursday, witness the making of a new Marvel villain.
Once you're on his list, there's only one way off.
Aaron Taylor Johnson is Craven the Hunter. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
You're listening to Achtung, Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Bermondsey. Accept no substitute.
Hello dear listeners, welcome to Achtung Millwall number 700, part 2, follow-up to yesterday's impromptu edition, done at scratch notice to be honest, with Aaron and Michael Avery, plus the voice notes that I received in the early part of yesterday afternoon. All in the wake, of course, of yesterday's shock news. Was it a shock? It was a shock in the moment of the departure of Neil Harris, a club legend. I've just put a little series of tweets out on X, just detailing for anyone that might have forgotten what a figure Neil Harris is and will remain in our club's history as a player and then as a manager. I won't go over that again because I think if you're listening to this show, you know all that already, really. Obviously, a manager that has had his critics this season, and there's been this counterpoint thing of the new direction of the club, the desire of the manager, of the management in Jimmy Berylson, the owner, I should say, the owner of the club, Jimmy Berylson, to slightly change direction away from the way we were under his dad, under John Berylson, which, shall we say, had a kind of an old-fashioned paternalistic quality, a fatherly quality, where players were nurtured along, and there was just a different feeling to the one that Jimmy is aiming at. Whether that's a more ambitious model, I suppose that will be underpinning it, of becoming a club that finds and develops and polishes talent for resale. It's actually quite a hard road that we're set upon now, and the first bump in the road was the departure of Neil Harris yesterday, whose whole personality and playing style and managerial style was built around fairly old-fashioned values, I think, of a loyalty to, what some have called favouring his mates is basically loyalty to players that have stood by him in tough situations. I put out a kind of an artified photo of the scene at Southampton when Neil came back to take charge in February. It seems so long ago now, in February of this year, and we were, on a death spiral, having lost Joe Edwards and his attempts to try and modernise, inverted commas, modernise our style of play. And we were on the road to League One, which had been a bit of a financial disaster for us. Certainly wasn't the ambitious target that Jimmy Berylson had set for the club at the start of last season. And Neil Harris came in effectively to save us. There's a great picture. I've done a little arty bit on it just to emphasise the grit, the determination on the faces of Neil Harris, Bart Bielkowski and George Saville standing next to them both in the kind of pre-match players huddle. A famous victory at table-topping Southampton, now in the Premier League, of course. And, it just epitomised and amplified the approach that Neil Harris brought as a player and as a manager. Some will say that those attributes will take you so far and you can hold these kind of truths in your head at the same moment. Both can be true. One is that the kind of cup tie style, backs to the wall, fight to the last man attributes that Neil Harris has. And I think despite the criticism that he's had this season, everyone will recognise that that is, the essence of him as a man, as a manager. Those values will take you so far. They'll get you through big cup tie situations. What they don't do maybe so well is stretch out across a 46 game programme where you need to have a different approach. The club is set upon an approach that has done well for the likes of Brentford and Brighton, and maybe to some level Bournemouth, all of which were fairly small scale clubs traditionally. I mean, if you said to me, 20, 30 years ago, Brighton, Brentford and Bournemouth, I'd be thinking of League One level clubs. And now we don't. We think of them as Premier League level clubs with the riches that generates. So that's the direction that the club has set upon. It has as its target perhaps a more ambitious model than Millwall has traditionally been able to sustain. It does give you some hard dilemmas, and whether this lies behind Neil's decision to go ahead of tonight's home game against Sheffield United or not, I don't know. But obviously the jewel in the crown at the moment at the Den is Romain Esse. There are rumours swirling, and I've got no inside track on this, listeners. I'd make a point really of not being part of the kind of insider circle that is close to the club in that sense. I know that some people will say, well, you go on Wall Talk, but that is really just it's a club podcast, which I'm very happy and proud to be part of, but it doesn't give me any insider track to the thinking at the very top table. It's a nice podcast to be involved in, but I've always tried not to be part of that, and that might sound a bit funny doing a show like this, but I like to present my viewpoint as a fan, because you can get lost in the the world of inside information and who thinks what about who. I'm generally not really interested in that part of doing these podcasts. I try and give it as a fan and a respecter of our club and history. That's my approach anyway. But yeah, going back to the point of what I'm saying, if you're going to be a producer and seller of talent, which is what we're set upon now, you have to at some point face the hard decision that you're going to have to sell your prize assets for X, who knows, whatever price we sell Romain for is going to be not enough in some people's eyes, and probably too much in the vendor, in the purchaser's eyes. We're the vendors, aren't we? So it's a difficult road. That way has led Brentford to progress through the divisions and on to the top table. That's the road that we're set upon. But I think there's a fundamental tension between selling your darlings, so to speak, and building a squad capable of challenging for top six football, because that's where Neil Harris would start from. There's been personality clashes. We've all read the same stuff online. We've seen the same post-match quotes from Neil. Back at the start of the season, he was naming 8 men on the substitutes bench when 10 were available. There's been a lot of to and fro kerfuffle behind the scenes, clearly, which has culminated in Neil deciding that he can't work in these conditions anymore. And tonight will be his last home game versus Sheffield United. And then Saturday he's going to cover the side going to Middlesbrough. It's actually quite a strange way to do it. I can't think of, off the top of my head, I can't think of any Millwall example like it. And even in football generally, for the most part, managers go, overnight almost, don't they? They disappear in a moonlight shadow, like the Mike Oldfield song. And to have this kind of departure, it's going to be an emotional occasion. I think it should be tonight because of his standing at the club. He is a major figure in our history. And to have this opportunity to say goodbye is a very unusual thing and quite strange. So we'll need all the emotion we can lay our hands on the pitch tonight, because we're up against it versus Sheffield United. So as in many things, as I posted online, Neil Harris has a unique way of leaving, and is a highly a distinctive figure. Let's say that. That's being very, downplaying his role in our club's history, in my opinion. Now, we've had a torrent of opinion and reaction and shows. We did that yesterday, our emergency podcast, as we call it. This is a follow-up, because I've had so many voice notes. People want to have their say. I'm kind of conscious that there's been a lot online and everyone wants to have their say. And part of the purpose of what I try and do is to give people that opportunity via the voice notes. So we've got a selection of voice notes to run. I thought I'd get this show out ASAP. So I've done no prep other than that little spiel I've just been through off the top of my head. But we're going to run through now with a series of voice notes, and I'll react as best I can afterwards, having listened to each one. So first up on our series, we're going to listen to a new voice, John Hennigan. Take it away, John.
Hi, Nick. John Hennigan here. Just thought I'd send a few thoughts just in the immediate aftermath of Neil Harris stepping down today as head coach of the club. Feel waves of shock, but then not feeling overly surprised, which I get is two very slightly contradictory emotions to have at the same time. I think the shock really comes in the timing, perhaps. Look, I think there's obviously been some deep lying issues in the club, probably since the summer, maybe even before that, perhaps, around what's been troubling Neil in the role. But I think the timing, given the nature of it, from effectively having a draw and a defeat, but after that, we were doing pretty well, and I think the football in general was starting to improve, if not started to turn over a little bit in the last few games. So it feels very reactionary almost as part of it, although given the comments that were said at the weekend, it doesn't seem too surprising. In terms of the general the lack of surprise from me on that, though, it feels that it was very much an inevitability what was going on there. Look, the club, I think, has set out quite clearly through the owner and now the director of football in Gallen and Berylson that they are wanting to go a certain way, and that doesn't align with what Harris wants, and that's partly down to his vision of an ethos of the football club built from past experiences, but also I think in terms of the fact that I don't think it's his strong point. I don't think he has the best track record in the world for identifying talent and also developing it. There's been a few exceptions to that, but generally speaking, I think it's his weak point as a manager, and he's also very pragmatic. And we've also had that through Rowett as well. Not going to really give much time to Edwards, but within that's a long time. That's a very significant period of time where we've had very pragmatic managers, and I think generally speaking, trying to get players to showcase in pragmatic teams is quite difficult. So you have to play a slightly different way to be able to showcase their technical skills, their dribbling, their pace, and their attacking prowess, especially if it's attacking players we're looking to market, which we will be doing in the likes of Ivanovic. So I think there's been a few issues there from the off. Can't for the life of me think of anybody who I'd want to actually replace him with. But I feel like it's a very defining moment, because it can go one of two ways, and it could be as dramatic as we could really be onto a winner by getting the right appointment, making some serious money on some of the players that we have got. Alternatively, it could be the other way, which is that the wrong appointment could mean that we drop like a stone and we could face a couple of years of at least looking like we're going to go down. So there is this could be quite the defining moment, and it'd be interesting to see what I'm assuming Steve Gallen will be thinking in terms of how he appoints. And I think there'll also not be a huge cry for it, given that it's a head coach role. So it may require somebody of a little bit more of a left field choice. I'm a Stockport boy, so I would always potentially throw Dave Challoner's name into the mix from Stockport County. He's done some serious wonders there. He's developed some real talent there as well, and also the football they play is on occasion has been absolutely terrific. So those are there would be a certain name potentially, but again, it's hard to call. Nonetheless, moving it back on to Neil, I think he'll always be a legend, regardless of what had happened on this spell. It's a shame that it's happening the way it is, but there's a romance to it still, in the sense that we can give him a good send off in the next couple of games, and thank him for all his work that he does, and hopefully that he links back in with the club at another point, whether it be in a manager role, whether it be in a director of football role, whatever it may be. So here's to him, and thank you for the job that you've done, Neil. Come on, you Lions.
Big thank you, John. Yeah, cheers for that. Some interesting points that you make there. I think there's a fundamental divergence, disconnect, whatever you want to call it, between the idea of being a developer and polisher and a football factory, so to speak, of talent. This is the kind of thing I think that we all say is wonderful, and I catch myself saying it, listeners. So, I'm not being, I'm aware of the flaws in what you might want as an idealistic approach. The idea being that you find a Romain essay, and then there must be another Romain essay to come along. Maybe it's Ivanovic, who knows? Maybe it's Femia's with development. But the problem with that is that you're going to sell your talent at moments where everyone says, well, if we kept him for this period, we could get promoted. It's a hard road, actually. I think there's a tendency, and I catch myself saying this, oh yeah, we should find and develop talent and polish it, like it's going to be some kind of silver bullet, get us out of trouble. It is the solution to our financial situation, because unless we're going to lay our hands on some oil-rich, person that won't really care one way or the other about Millwall Football Club, fundamentally just wants the social standing and the sports wash to deal with their bad reputation. Unless we're going to find that, and the Berylson family who have looked after the club for so many years now, move aside for some ne'er-do-well billionaire coming in that wants to go on a kind of spending spree and then bankrupt us. This is the only route really that's going to sustain us, but it's not an easy route. So you've got the contrast between developing and polishing talent, i.e. means playing young players that you don't think are quite ready for the tough championship. I mean, it's a tough league. So Ivanovic being a good example. Is he championship ready yet? He's probably on the early rungs of a long ladder to develop the physical and mental approach that's going to be needed when he's up against seasoned, hardened, championship level defenders. So a manager is primarily, his job is to win football matches and hopefully climb the table, and ultimately to try and get into the top six, isn't it? That's called success. Any other measure is airy-fairy accountancy, chairman talking to the managing of operations and the accountants, not his concern. He deals in goals scored, goals conceded, points won. So there's a disconnect. What I'm dodging around the mulberry bush here, saying is that polishing talent and selling it on does require patience. And now, I don't know about you, dear listeners, I don't know about you, John, but I've never really found the magic patience tree at the Den, have you? For the most part, youngsters get a very short leash. before they started to be harangued by people in the crowd. And, it's not a couple of weeks since at Oxford where club living legend Neil Harris is getting booed because, he's dropped 2 points where 3 were on the table at half time on the back of an unbeaten run, which at that point was still 9 games strong. There it is. That's football. So there is the pragmatism that you speak about, John, and then the patience required to develop talent. I think that's what we need to buy in. Whoever gets the job. Dave Challinor at Stockport, he's done wonders, hasn't he? I think the likes of him. Whether managers of the standing of Mark Robins would want to relinquish control in the same way that Neil Harris has been reluctant to relinquish control and yet be judged on results, because it's him that takes the grief on match day. It's him that fronts up at as he put it. I think it was Bristol where he says he's talking about it's him fronting up for the failings of others, as he would have reading between his lines back then. Whether a manager of Robins' standing will want to do that, I don't know. Would Challinor do it? I don't know. Or are we going to find some coach from, from Portuguese football that no one's ever heard of that comes in and will do it? I don't know. It's a huge crossroads, and I'm sure this is going to be the same point made over and over on these voice notes, but it's not an easy situation, and I do worry about our dear little club that we've made one foul up with Joe Edwards aiming for the stars. Will we make another? Let's take a short break, and then we'll come back with Charlie and Jamie Mack.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
This episode is brought to you by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. There's a lot to be thankful for this season. For one, I'm thankful you can get NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV right now for only $209. It's exactly what you need as we head right into the playoffs. You can invite your friends over. Maybe you have a multi-view. You could have 4 different games, one for you, one each for the 3 other friends you invite. You can change the games around. As soon as the outcome becomes pretty certain, dump that game, put in another one. I've become the multi-view master. The moment the one of the games is losing steam, I'm ready to move right in and move it for another one. Build your own multi-view. One of my favorite words. Thank yourself this holiday season. Get NFL Sunday Ticket for the rest of the NFL regular season for just $209. Sign up now at youtube.com/BS. Terms and embargoes apply. Device and content restrictions apply. No cancellations.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Achtung, Millwall.
Hi Nick, Charlie here. Might be late for a voicemail, but thought I'd just share my thoughts on Neil Harris leaving. Also, congrats on getting to the finalists of the Best Team podcast for the Sports Podcast Awards. Fantastic achievement. Always love the show, Nick. Neil Harris, I can't believe it, to be honest. I'm not surprised after Saturday's comments in that sense, but I am surprised in just how sudden it's happened. We've done really well this season, and I've not known a manager before to be 1 defeat in 10 and decide to leave his job, so something must be going on underneath everything. But when he came in February, we were going to go down. We were heading to League One, and Neil Harris saved me from going on trips to Northampton and Cambridge, and instead having good times this season against Leeds and Burnley. But
I don't know. This could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Time will tell. If you were to ask me who I'd want now, I don't know. The name's going around. Steve Cooper. Yeah, not really. Mark Robins interests me. The success he had with Coventry and the way he got them playing. Saw the Wickham manager was linked as well. But I don't think we can go for a Joe Edwards type at the moment. I think last season was an example. We definitely can't go for a Gary Rowett type either. So he had odds on getting the job again, which is bemusing, but hey ho. But thanks, Nick. Keep it up.
Good morning, Nick. This is Jamie calling from Australia, waking up to the shocking news that Neil Harris has left the club. I didn't really see this one coming. I thought he was doing a pretty good job and an amazing job, to be honest with you. I didn't expect him to do this well this time round. There must be something else going on behind the scenes that's really upset him. Some of our fan base probably didn't appreciate the job he was doing. I think he was doing the job to the best of his ability. And what that is what Neil Harris does. I don't think you can expect any more. What is the future of Millwall Football Club? That is now to be seen. I'm completely at a loss. The one thing I can say is that thanks, Neil, and I wish you all the best in the future. And I hope that Harry Warren's okay. And if he needs any mental health counselling after this, then he should get it. It's hard to say even shocks, to be honest with you, because this is Millwall. I thought the drama was behind us, but obviously not. Let's see where we go now. Shocked.
Dramas are never behind us, Jamie, after all these years following the Lions, mate. We all know that, don't we? And also we all tend to live for the turmoil of the soap opera at the Den. It's the wine of life, as someone once said to me on a different subject, the wine of life. It made me laugh when Charlie, a message back, mentioned Gary Rowett being touted as a potential. Poor old Harry, I don't know, we might never see him at the Den again. I don't know, I haven't got any inside track on any of those names, really. I suppose the one that stands out to me that Charlie mentioned was Mark Robins. Aaron mentioned Mark Robins yesterday. The main problem, I think, will a manager of Mark Robbins's clear standing and experience be prepared to work under the direction of Steve Gallen, which is effectively what we're talking about here. And I dare say, I don't know, but I dare say Neil's been under pressure to play certain players to polish up the assets and get their value up. You know, talking about Ivanovic. When he doesn't think he's ready to take the field in a championship setting. It was quite pointed. He mentioned last Saturday when we had that late corner and Lucas Jensen went forward that both, we didn't name them, but the clues were so strong that Ivanovic and Imaku were standing outside the penalty area, so which, as he put it, is inexperience showing. Let's not mention that awful corner from Joe Prime. So yeah, I mean, finding a manager willing to work within those strictures is going to be no easy thing there. I think, Jamie, that's what I'd say. The other thing I would mention, I mean, one thing you mustn't do in this world is criticise the fan base. That must never be criticised, must it? I do think that the people that were booing at Oxford in the wake of a disappointing second half might really want to reflect on the the folly of their actions. I mean, I don't think that was the crucial thing. It shouldn't be the crucial thing because a bit of booing surely can't hurt you. But you do read some stuff online. So for sure, criticise managerial decisions, for sure, team selection. But sometimes some people go a bit too far with that, and they seem to lack the. This is a social media thing. You see it in lots and lots of different ways. I think social media is totally. I'm off on a tangent now, listeners. Social media allows you to say stuff that you would never say face to face in any kind of personal, one-to-one situation. You see it so much in reactions to people's, comments, in all sorts of fields and directions. it's a very, very strange thing. I'm not sure it's a terribly good thing, in truth. Although I do use social media, of course, I'm on X, but I try not to get involved in or embroiled in the tit for tat and the reactive stuff that you see a lot of. But you see it so many directions now, and I think it's leading to a very strange modern world where you can say absolutely whatever you like with no consequence, or so it appears anyway. Until one day there is consequences, and then it's not so funny, I suppose. Anyway, there it is. I'm waffling now. Let's have a listen to Chicago Joe and then Ben Anthony.
Hello, Joe from Chicago. It's Neil Harris leaving day, or whatever, that's Saturday. It is clear that he was not comfortable as a head coach and being told what to do. This started from when he came in. You don't call the owner Jimmy in writing in public. You call him James. Neil calls him Jimmy. Feels more comfortable than the average head coach would. And it seems like he's just been entitled and trying to go against what Gallen wants. Will it work? I don't know. But it was clear that this was reaching ahead, and at least Millwall did the right thing and are replacing the manager before January 1st. Having said that, what a chaotic week. Just this isn't great. This is kind of terrifying, but hopefully they get the right hire. But this is really hilarious. Thank you, Neil, on behalf of all the thickos. Just really went out with a bang. You better beat Sheffield United tomorrow now. If they're going to do all this stuff, they got to beat Sheffield or at least get a point. Borough on the road. Sheffield, let's mess with the top of the table. Cheers. Come on, you Lions.
Hello, Nick. Hello, listeners. Ben Anthony calling in. In complete shock about the news today that Neil Harris is going to be departing the club. It's been a weird couple of weeks, hasn't it? And I nearly called in the other day after the Coventry game, and I chose not to because I didn't have an awful lot to say. I didn't really know how to read the bizarre comments from Harris in the press interviews. His comments to Millwall TV were quite different. I didn't at any point get the impression that he was talking about all Millwall fans. I think he was talking about a very select, perhaps, group of people. But I didn't think it was the right way to be going about his business, and it was very out of character for him, I thought. The whole day felt a bit weird and a bit off, and I can only assume that he's reflected on a few things and decided he needs to step away. And thinking back to the last time he was manager with us, he stepped away mid-season, and I think he's aware that he has a legacy with this football club, and that he is a hero of Millwall, and I think he knows that he wants to leave it without tarnishing his reputation with us. And he absolutely leaves Millwall Football Club as a hero of the club and a legend of the club, and somebody who, for me, is my hero. And I will always back Neil Harris. And the mess we were in last season and the difference he's made, and actually, on the whole, the quality of the play and the quality of the results this season just shows what a brilliant man and a brilliant manager Neil Harris is, and he was a brilliant player for us as well. And if he does, I doubt he does, but if he does listen to Achtung Millwall, I hope he hears us being able to say, actually, thank you for everything that he's done. And I hope he can come back to the Den just as a fan sometime, and I hope he goes on to have a thoroughly successful career somewhere. And of course, we have to hope that the club can find someone to step into what I think are enormous shoes and drive the club forward. And, I hope the players can take it in the right way. And we don't have a repeat of the kind of turmoil we had last season following Rowett's departure and the disastrous appointment of Joe Edwards. So, a lot to process and, a long way in this season to go. And we have to hope that things turn out for the best. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Joe. Before Ben, lot to think about, really, listeners. One thing that struck me in recent weeks has been the kind of the very intense nature of the Den. I mean, Neil came to us as a kind of on a rescue mission, really, didn't he? Back in February, he'd got himself a job from Gillingham. I think he was at Gillingham. He'd been at Cardiff, bigger club, obviously Cardiff. I imagine Cardiff would have something of the intensity of Millwall. The Den can be a very small yet very intense pressure cooker of a place. We know that as fans. Number of intense comments you get online, and I dare say shows. I try not to be on this show, but you get people picking at you online, on the podcasts and video and so on and so forth. So a very difficult pot boiler of a situation to contend with. Now, I know that's football, but when you go to clubs like, I'm going to guess, Gillingham and probably Cambridge, these must be much more, I'd say Wickham. We've had a name mentioned from Wickham, haven't we, Matt Bloomfield. But these are much smaller scale, less intense, slightly more rural, if you want, vibes there. I know it's a football stadium, but it's certainly not that kind of impending, Joe said, chaotic and terrifying. That's Millwall. That's how we operate. It's almost in our blood and DNA. And I would imagine from Neil's point of view that you can do it for so long because Neil is also an intense Millwall fan. I was lucky enough, I mentioned this before, when I got ill a few years ago. I think Aaron might have arranged for him to give me a call. And it was Neil Harris, calling me on my phone. Even now, it slightly astounded me that he would take the time to do that. Saturday night, I'd got home from hospital, and Neil Harris called me and spoke at some length to me, personally, one-to-one, talked about his own situation and all that kind of stuff. It was a big boost to my spirits. But as a person, I've got every sense he was a fan. He was a fan of England, fan of Millwall, and he cared. And one of life's problems when you do anything, whatever that might be, work or sport or relationships, whatever, if you care so much that it overwhelms you, it can become quite a crushing experience. It can become bad for your health. And I wonder whether that's what's also brought him to this situation where he's trying to, he feels himself pulled in two different directions. One, the requirements of his employer, Millwall Football Club, but also as a manager, you want to get out there and win football matches. And if you're being pulled in different directions, that maybe takes its price, takes its toll. I think we can all probably think along those lines a little bit. I think it's a big moment, and as everyone's been saying so far, who do we get next? I don't know. It's got to be someone that can handle the pressure that is the Den. Now, whether Steve Gallen and Jimmy Berylson understand that fully, we're going to find out. The only previous occasion we've got where they've gone for, or Jimmy's gone for anyone else. I'm going to call him James, like you suggest, actually, Joe. I don't know the man. I keep calling him Jimmy. James Berylson. Was Joe Edwards, and that was great intent, but failure of execution. That didn't work out. So let's see who we get next. I haven't got any pat suggestions, to be honest with you, dear listeners. We're going to take a very short advertising break, and then we're going to be back after that with final two messages, which is Adam Wicks and Archie Whittaker. So stay tuned.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write 1 million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at hubspot.com/marketers.
Achtung, Millwall.
Evening, Nick. Just Adam Wicks here, just leaving my thoughts just after the really sad news for me that Neil Harris is going to be no longer continuing as manager. I think all of us could tell the last couple of weeks something wasn't right, and he was sort of being very even more defensive than he can be. Obviously, culminating with the comments after the Coventry game, which were obviously very unfortunate. I think just for me, I'd just like to, just start by just thanking him for, coming back, dropping everything, and saving us from what looked like a one-way ticket to League One last season. I think that Southampton game will live long in the memories for me and my kids and anyone that was there. It was a wonderful day, and there's been plenty of sort of classic Harris moments in the short time he's been back, and I mean you can't take away from the outrageous sort of points haul in that time. I think to get the sort of the tune out of the team that he's managed to in the time he has is nothing short of miraculous, and is a testament to his sort of ability to turn games into cup finals and really squeeze the most out of everybody. I think where that sort of comes apart a little bit is when we start to run into injuries and tiredness, and things get a little bit sticky. But I don't think there's any of us that can deny that when things are going well with him at the helm, it's been a wonderful place to be. And I think it sort of galvanised all of us after what happened last season with Rowett and then Joe Edwards, just to sort of remind us what how things can be, and that we can take on all comers, and we are who we are, and we should really lean into that, and not try and make ourselves something that we're not. I think too many teams do that, and it's where things go really, really wrong. So a big thank you from me. I'll be forever grateful for the contribution he has made, as a player, a manager, and just an all round decent, good human being, and wonderful ambassador for the club. I think just I've been thinking on things since the weekend a little bit, and I think just to flip things on their heads a touch, I'd just maybe like people just to consider, maybe Harris hasn't been sort of expressing his frustration at the fans so much. Maybe the sort of people he's been taking aim at are a bit higher up the food chain. The people with their heads in the clouds may be at board level. The thickos may be, unfortunately, at board level. I really hope they know what they're doing. I think in general terms, the sort of direction of travel, recruitment-wise, younger, more energetic players with potential, sell-on value is all good. But that's only going to work if we are stable, and if we are, a sort of decent footballing prospect, and we're, that's only going to be achieved with a solid sort of foundation level. And I'm a little bit concerned. I was hoping Harris would sort of would see this period out to the end of the season, and that would give the club time to sensibly plan for a transition. I'm just a little bit worried after the turbulence of last season that this sort of throws things upside down a little bit again. Lots of senior players out of contract at the end of the season, and I know there's already been a note from Gallen about no discussions on new deals, and I think things as good as they can be, they can also unravel very quickly, and this needs to be done properly. I just hope we don't do anything stupid, like, I don't know, appoint somebody Charlton affiliated close to Steve Gallen or anything sort of along those lines. There needs to be a real sensible rationale for whoever this person is, and they're going to have to combine that sort of sense of, us against the world, Millwall grittiness, with being able to harness and bring the best out of what is some undoubted potential amongst the squad. But yeah, I think that's enough rambling for me. Thank you very much, Neil. You amazing, and I genuinely believe there should be a statue of him and probably John Docherty outside the front of the ground in the car park. Anyway, hopefully he gets the send-off he deserves from the fans. Come on, you Lions.
Well said, Adam. I was going to run Archie's message straight after that, but I thought I'd interject because I liked what you said there about the collective thanks that all fans should have for Neil Harris and his achievements. Statues, we're going to look like Pompeii with all these statues we're going to have outside the ground. You only get them when you're dead, generally. So the John Docherty, Neil Harris, maybe, and John Berylson. There's 3 statues. You could put one up of Barry Kitchener, Harry. Oh, we'd have it would be like ancient Rome out there, wouldn't it? I digress. It is a very concerning situation, Adam. I've got to be honest with you. The board level decision making needs to be spot on. We are who we are, and the worry that I have, I suppose, much as I understand and can see the logic of the idea of Millwall as a kind of finder and developer of talent, which is kind of what we've always been. There's nothing new in that. It's just it's being set out as the purpose of the football club. We've always sold our talent. I think the main thing that I want to see is if we're going to sell the talent, right from Gordon Hill, the first one I remember. We always seem to sell it underpriced, and I think where I really want to see us be realistic is we're getting maximum value. I don't know what level we're going to get for Romain SA. Crystal Palace are being talked about. 12 million. I don't know any. I've only gone by what I see on the internet, same as you, dear listener. But I want to see us get a maximum value for these players. If we're getting that, then that's really all. That's the same as we've ever been, to be truthful. The idea that we've always bought and retained talent has been marginal. Maybe we did when Theo kept hold of Neil Harris for a season when we got promoted. Once maybe Reg Burr managed to bring in and keep a couple of players a little bit longer. But we've traditionally sold when we have to, because generally we're on the brink of being skinters. But the board on this occasion has a huge, huge task. They've got to get it right. I make you right about getting somebody with some understanding, some measure of the weapon that they have at the Den. We don't want somebody... Gary Rowett had Charlton connections, actually, now I think about it, didn't he? Played from. But somebody uncomfortable with the Millwall chaos. You've got to somehow find and use it. The youngsters that are out there in our side that have potential. We're talking about Ivanovic, not the finished article, but potential. Imaku, certainly not the finished article, but with potential. Aziz, looking better, but still not the finished article. They all thrive on the sheer electric energy of the Den. That's what you've got to bring on side. Neil Harris was the master of disaster. He could, as we saw against Everton, Leicester City, this season, Burnley and Leeds bring the Den into play as a 12th man on the pitch. That's the measure of the task. I think there's going to be a very difficult process now of finding a coach somehow able to tap into that whilst conforming with this developmental brief. We'll see. But some of the biggest nights of my life have been enjoyed under Neil Harris's management, and I make you right, Adam, about a thank you for him. Now I'm going to play us out with a final message now from Archie Whittaker. I'm going to be at the Den tonight. I thought I'd just produce this show fast and furious. Hope you've enjoyed the coverage we've given to this. I dare say we'll be hearing some more in the wake of tonight's game against Sheffield United. I'm hoping for a really emotional, big night of thank yous for Neil Harris. And let's hope for 3 points tonight. But until the next edition of Achtung Millwall, from me, Nick Hart, I'm going to get myself a cup of coffee now. Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
Hi Nick, it's Archie here after the Neil Harris news. Well, first and foremost, what a legend. And, well, I'm pretty sure that last year we were down. To be honest, I'm not shocked. I think I felt it sort of coming, something brewing behind the scenes for quite a while now. I don't think it's anything to do with them comments the other day, whether you agree with them or don't agree with them. I think it's all to do with this new vision, this modern football type vision of turning our club around in the same way as sort of Brentford and Bournemouth have done. And I think even that interview from Gallen the other week was, well, I think it was last week, about saying I wait until we avoiding relegation and we might have a couple of players coming in, and it's like, I'm sure Harris is like, well, where's the ambition here? I'm sitting in whatever place we were, sort of 8th or 9th at the time. We could make a push. What I will say is, whether it's mainly James Berylson going down this line, or he seems to have a lot of trust in this Gallen, and well, I hope that his trust is warranted, because they do seem to be putting a lot of trust in him. I think this is a similar time, bit later than when Rowett left last year, but we thought, there's no way we'll go down, we're too good to go down. And we then went into, well, it was like the Titanic, wasn't it? So let's just hope that we get someone in that's not going to try and change everything and change all the style of play and blah, blah, blah. We need someone that knows the league, knows the club, knows the fans, and someone that we can all get behind. It's mad to think, literally probably about a month ago, maybe even a bit less, 2-3 weeks ago, I was thinking, he'd be signing a new contract soon. And then, as you've been saying on the podcast recently, a week/month is a long time at football, but it's an eternity at Millwall, how things have turned. But I think, obviously, with that unbeaten run, I think Harris knew he wasn't going to be here from past this season, I suppose, when you look at it now. And I suppose with this vision, as much if whether you like it or not, it's a bit silly to be signing all these young players and then not playing them. You know, I mean, Dan Kelly, for example, we saw him for about 20 minutes, and yeah, fair enough. I think he come in on a Tuesday and then he was in the team against Leyton Orient, and I mean, I think we actually paid money to get him in before January, which is pretty pointless considering he's not had a game. But I suppose now, with a new head coach, if you like, I think, well, Gallen's going to be sort of the main man and saying you can pick this player, you can't pick this player, or not like that, but making sure that the young players, the investments get a go. And I suppose in the coming weeks and months, we'll see if Harris is right. I mean, Harris is probably the only guy in that head coach role at Millwall that can get away with keep playing who he wants to play, and but that even then, that could only last so long. So I think we're going to find out who was right, really, because in a business point of view, you can't be signing however much Ivanovic was and Dan Kelly. I don't know the exact figures, but you can't be signing them and not playing them, because then your investment is going to turn into a complete loss. I'm trying not to be too downbeat, but what a legend Neil Harris is for this club, and yeah, let's just hope and pray that we get someone in that knows how to deal with our club. Come on, you Lions.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.